So thank you very much for your time. I'd be happy to answer some questions if you like. And I just really appreciate you guys hanging out with me.
We heard much of the damage that we suffered here in Kalamazoo from the bitumen tar sands that was spilled from the pipeline bridge. You heard the stories?
No, I haven't heard much, and I was kind of hoping when I was here, I was trying to, get someone to visit with me about what had happened, and maybe, after some people have that, because I know that a lot of people are interested in our community when what happens when things go bad. Kind of from our perspective, if there's pipelines, I'm not opposed to all pipelines, but I like these. So, yeah.
Thank you. We on? Winona, thank you very much for coming. I'm curious if we sat together in a Wild Rice talking circle on Saturday, and I'm interested if you could share a little bit of your background knowledge. Wild rice is basically controlled, the harvest is controlled by the tribes in Minnesota and Wisconsin. Michigan is trying to figure out whether we can do that. Do you have any insight for us as to how the powers that be are going to accept that sort of transition and movement to a tribally controlled wild rice resource?
It's kind of an enlightenment thing. Michigan doesn't seem too enlightened, sorry to say. Someone used this term at that conference I thought was really interesting, which was, the term was ecological amnesia, which I thought was very interesting because, if you have an ecosystem that you don't have rice in anymore because it's already been damaged and you forgot that there's rice there, or forgot that something belongs there, then it's just, you relate to it differently. And I think that it seems like the state of Michigan, needs to recognize an ecosystem that could be restored. And, we need to look at how we fix things, not how we keep mitigating it and allowing it to worsen. And, Michigan's, policies, including this, it's just not good, even like with the wolf kill. From our perspective. I think that also, that Michigan needs to protect the grain of wild rice. It's the only grain indigenous to North America. It is the only, and you have the potential, you have a lot of lakes here. You have the potential for restoration if you would take care of it and do it the right way. And Anishinaabe people need to be central to that because we're the people that know that story. We're the ones that are connected to that rice. And so I really would encourage, people in Michigan to really support that whole process and also the process of, the Anishinaabe involvement in it. And tribes need to be able to regulate it, and tribes need to be able to harvest it. So, thanks, yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Chris. I kind of wanted to ask a question, and I hope this isn't disrespectful, but I also wanted to throw just some information for us in the community. Some of us in the area have tried to speak out pretty boldly against tar sands, and we actually have 4 individuals between 2 to 3 years prison starting next week in a trial in Ingham County for locking up to try to stop the expansion of 6B here.
Wow.
So I just wanted to put that out. That's going to be next Monday, and it's a grandmother, single mother, and 2 college students.
And they're facing prison time for opposing 6B's expansion?
Part of the Michigan Coalition Against Tar Sands. They took peaceful civil disobedience and locked themselves next to on construction equipment. But my question, I was very inspired about the idea of locally growing crops. We have kind of a specific issue with that here in West Michigan because of the oil spill. We're still finding what could be potentially thousands of chemicals in the bottom of the river in these formations and things. And there's a good chance that the way the water system works here, that this went into our crops in other areas. Is there anything, just with agriculture, is there local ways we can try to protect ourselves, or are there things we can grow with the crops and things like that here to start offsetting some of these chemicals that can start causing cancer from 4 to 16 years in?
Yeah, I am not the person who does bioremediation, but that's what you need. Do you know what I'm saying? And I don't know the answer because sometimes it just moves things around in your ecosystem. But for instance, I was, we have a radio station and I was in Colorado about a month and a half ago, and I was interviewing about industrial hemp and marijuana. And it turns out that hemp is something that bioremediates really well. And of course, hemp is still illegal here, although it is legal in Colorado. And it's used for mining waste. I don't know what, is used for other things. The other thing that I would say to you is something that you probably know, which is, you're going to have to bring in some other soil for some of it, and that's not easy. But I know that, for instance, Growing Power in its work in Chicago is growing by some brown fields, and they are bringing in other soil, and then they're doing a lot of work to bioremediate their soil, right? But that implies smaller scale agriculture, right? Which is part of what I think that I'm saying is that the more you power that agriculture by yourself, or in our case, we're working with our, horses to do that, then you are not with fossil fuels and you have a different scale. And, really, I wish you guys all a lot of luck out here. And some prayers for those people in their tribe.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question.
Winona.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot all about the girls.
Kevin Camp says Boozoo.
Boozoo.
And thank you so much. A really good talk. I have a question that's kind of pertinent to this area, actually the Great Lakes, is that we have a lot of aging nuclear reactors.
You have a lot of what?
Aging nuclear reactors. Kalamazoo is in the kind of a danger zone downwind from Palisades, which has had a history of cracking and leaking and tritium leaks. And in my opinion, when a nuclear reactor is leaking tritium into the groundwater, it should be shut down and take care of the problem. The only way they can take care of those problems is to decommission the plant. And it's my opinion they should do that. But I would like your advice on how can people mobilize to be more effective in dealing with these aging, dangerous nuclear power plants and shut them down. Do you have any ideas on that?
There's no easy answer, but what I would say is that obviously you have to transition from that energy economy to another energy economy. And so you need a set of proposals that will be that transition. And that transition, like, I don't have an assessment of your wind and solar potential here. I don't have an assessment of your biomass potential here, but that's what you need, is the technical transition, and then also the transition that addresses, you have more industries that consume more power here than I deal with in my community, right? And then you have more, inefficiencies, and so you have a whole set of challenges, but how you're going to generate that power from other sources, or how you're going to reduce the consumption, are a couple of the big questions that one should ask. And Germany would be the example I would look at, because Germany's got a third of its power from renewables and is closing down its entire nuclear industry after Fukushima. So Germany is a country that has some ideas, and they aren't a sunny country for the south. They're like a northern foggy country. Right? You know what I'm saying? So I would be, if I was in Michigan, Germany's probably as industrialized as Michigan, I would be looking at Germany and figuring out what Germany does and use that as an example. It's not like you have to recreate things, and that's a first world country.
Well, some of, like Detroit Edison, we're trying to stop them from building Fermi 3, a new nuclear reactor.
Yeah.
And they recently are investing in wind farms. The problem with the wind farms is it's centralized, and it can cause a lot of EMF and hazardous to people's health and all kinds of effects. I think that it's kind of tough, because when you make a suggestion, they fly with it, and it turns out to hurt people. Just like instead of having like decentralized. Like what you're doing with the solar panel lake. Instead of that, they still want to have all that power And they want to have the big wind farms and the big grid and just run it down wherever they want it, run it through people's backyards and on top of schools and everything. And it's horrendous in this state because we have Monsanto, we have Dow Chemical.
Right.
We
So,
have so much here that is,
so what I'm going to say is that it's not going to, half the people here aren't going to like it. But that's just the way it goes in my situation. So what I'm going to say is that you're heavily industrialized. And you have the load that I am dealing with is not the load that you're dealing with. And so you have to come up with a solution that deals with that load. So you have to have efficiency, and you have to have decentralized, like every area has to have some power that they generate themselves. And then you're going to have some larger utility scale generation. Unless you deconstruct your industrial, scale. They could do, I don't know what they could do at those facilities. I don't know how much cogeneration, you know what I'm saying? I have no idea, but I know that people have done that kind of analysis.
right?
And there's those guys like they're from Wisconsin, they have that funny acronym COWS, Center on Wisconsin Strategy, I think. But they do that kind of analysis of how you do this mixed system. But I'm not opposed to, I don't oppose everything. And some people tell me you can't do wind because it's got an impact too. I'm like, everything has an impact. But we can't do the combusting and the nuclear thing that we're doing. And until you get rid of, Upjohn and Monsanto and Pioneer and whoever else is out here, Dow, you have like I know what it is down here. Kind of. I mean, I basically got that. And so, so to say, it's like, so let me wind power my weapons factory. I mean, you understand what I'm saying? Is like, I don't have an answer on that one. You still got a highly dangerous, mega industrial complex, but some of that is going to stay. And while you transition that to whatever you're transitioning that to, you're going to have to do some renewables and you're going to have to scale. And I'm totally opposed to nuclear power, and I'm obviously opposed to, coal generation. And I'm not a fan of fracked gas either. So thank you though for your questions. Yeah.
Thanks for coming out. This might seem a little redundant now with that response that you just gave. I was curious on just your feelings and thoughts that, unlike, I think wind turbines and solar panels are really helpful, but at the same time there's rare earth minerals that are costly and we need to mine these things. And this deal, so personally on my level, I still think that this isn't solving the problem because somebody's family, somebody's home, somebody's land, somebody's ancestry is being entirely destroyed to build a massive steel mill that is then going to create green energy of wind farms.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think it's always interesting to ask people's stance on where do we draw the line of is this too much or should we keep going kind of, I guess.
Well, this is kind of my approach to that is we're in a really bad spot. And so you're going to have to start making some transition and making some choices. And I'm working with some communities that are fighting some mines in northern Michigan and northern Wisconsin and northern Minnesota. And there's more copper in our landfills than there is in some of those deposits, right? I mean, and that's the reality is that you need to go back and get this stuff and regroup from all the stuff that we're wasting right now. So you don't necessarily have to mine everything, And I have this really brilliant idea, which of course I have no chemical understanding of how to do, but wild rice, for instance, the hulls of wild rice doesn't burn. Why doesn't it burn? Because it's full of silica. And what's one of the primary things in a solar panel? Silica. Now, if I could figure out how to make wild rice hulls into solar panels, I'd be set. But you see what I'm saying is so I don't know. I don't know the answers to all of those, but one of the things that I think I learned, because I've been around, I'm old enough to be your mother, you figured that out, is, look, I was in 1994, I went down to see the Zapatistas, right?
20-year anniversary just recently.
It is? Oh yeah.
On the New Year, that was a...
Right, and so in June is when I went down, so it'll be the 20th anniversary of my Zapatista. Okay, so I go down there, and I remember there, it was really interesting and something, really awesome and eye-opening. But the point of this is that they had this saying, which was, don't be an island of political correctness unto yourself. And I think about that a lot because, we can be like all perfect, but we have to deal with the situation we're in. And sometimes when you're that island of political correctness unto yourself, you're like, not only, people get so politically correct that they don't have any friends anymore. You know what I'm saying? And so in this case, what I'm saying is like, I totally understand your arguments. I am carbon footprint. I carbon footprinted my way out here. You know what I'm saying? I had this talk with Vandana Shiva about it, and I talked to Bill McKibben about it. I was like, Vandana, how's it going, girl? No. Anyway, Vandana and I had this conversation. I said, so you and I share a big carbon footprint. We fly around the world. She flies around the world fighting Monsanto. I said, how do you feel about that? I said, do you ever feel like, let me just stay home, not cause a big, carbon footprint and fight these guys? She said, if I don't fly around the world and fight those guys, by the time they come to me, there won't be anybody to help, right? And so it's this compromise that I don't fall on my sword about, because, you do the best you can. And then, obviously the more local everything you do, the lower impact you have,
But my question is, do you know a lot about perennial corn? No. Okay, there you go.
I don't think there is, but I'm with you. And I'm glad that you're inspired, because I need a retirement plan.
Cool. The reason I asked is I saw this article in National Geographic several years ago, maybe over 10 years ago, and they talked about perennial crops such as corn, and I just wondered if that was something.
The guy who's working on that is this guy named Wes Jackson. And he's like one of the coolest guys in the world. He runs this thing called the Land Institute in Salina, Kansas. And his thing is about reperennializing agriculture for that very reason you're talking about. But, I think that is brilliant. I'm going to, I grow these annual crops, but I'm going to more hazelnuts this year because I want to perennialize more of our harvest. Same thing, it's just, and, hoping for the best. Jerusalem artichokes are kind of perennial, right?
I've got a huge patch of those.
Yeah, those are great. And they're very high in nutrition, and they're very much a regional food, but people don't know about them, and, I'm a big fan of Jerusalem artichokes, so, yeah.
Terrific.
Thank you.
A lot about how to best use technology and resources for sustainability, right? Those of us who get the message, we'd like to live for a living, for example. I think now we call it training students in cottage industries or something like that. So I think about, do you have any advice, ideas for how to take steps to kind of help form a network? Because I think the power of the people, now we have enough people, we have the internet, and we can network for change. Not as individuals, but as community, bringing together all of our different skills, we can use these resources and technologies, not have to scrounge for a living at corporations or whatnot. Do you have any ideas on how to form this network, or come together, or start this network, or how to connect people? Something. Help me.
I was just watching you move. I think that it's happening, because you go, so I was up in, where were we, in Lansing, and I go to the bar one evening, and I'm going to get a glass of wine, and they have 25 local IPAs, right? You have a local food, you have a local brewery, you have local cheeseries, local, you know what I'm saying? Local breweries, local soaperies, I don't know. You know what I'm saying is increasingly it is happening. There is this globalization, and then there's relocalization. Because relocalization is cool. Aside from everything else, it's just really cool to taste, I'm entirely privileged. You guys figured that out. So our organization won the International Slow Food Award in 2003, and I've been to Italy 5 times. What's slow food? You go over there, and those guys are all about the difference between, quality and quantity. And they have 75 kinds of sauce and all these different kinds of mushrooms, and they're all into it, right? It turns out I like all that stuff too, and a lot of us do. We like that something is different and it is beautiful. And so, to me, a lot of it is about nurturing that movement and then keeping to grow and increasingly growing that. And I think at some level, like the reality is that people get more and more stressed out about their energy bills. You know, so if you give people ways to get out of that, then, you know, there is a way, you know, and then you have to have the courage to fight these guys, you know, because that is really important, because they feel entitled to own the planet, you know, and that is the reality of what they feel like. Enbridge feels entitled to those pipelines, and they are not entitled to anything. You know, they're a 65-year-old corporation that's Canadian that has no right to eminent domain. And that's what they're saying. You know, and so, you know, to me, you know, the more that we challenge that, because, you know, I'm working, like, I'm going home tomorrow and hosting like 10 Norwegian Lutherans who are coming to my house, and they're all mad at Enbridge. You know, and I'm like, you know, so we're going to talk about what they're going to do. You know, but that is, people don't like those ideas. And so you have to both, like, fight these guys and speak and push in every, you know, utilities commission, public regulation, you know, legislative, you know, it's beyond voting. And then you make the cool stuff happen. You know, that's how I look at it a lot. Now, it was interesting because I'm going to find this quote again and put it on one of our Facebook sites. You know, I wasn't on Facebook until a couple of years ago, but I'm on Facebook now. And to keep track of my kids, but also to peddle ideas. You know, the rise of instant media, of pictures like that woman facing those cops, right? Of what you saw in Arab Spring. The fact that people like you and me, with access to a cell phone and a huge, you know, we break the silence. You know, and so they can't do the stuff that they used to do, right? And so in this case, what he said is that the rise of that movement means that it is going to be impossible for the continued domination of those forces. You know, and so I think about that, and I just say keep doing it. You know, keep doing it, because, you know, people don't feel right about seeing people with guns come into your community in North America when you're just out there hanging out. You know what I'm saying? People don't like it. And so, I feel like we need to hold governments accountable. We need to push it. In this case, it's the Harper government. So don't ever think that they're nice in Canada, because they're not. You know, it's a really bad government. It'd be kind of like if Dick Cheney was president. That's what Stephen Harper's like, right? So don't let them hide behind some kind of like nice guy Canadianism, because they're not. They're horrible. They're horrible. You know, and the movement, I don't know more, huge movement in Canada that still goes. You know. So anyway, I'm going to, thank you for your time. I'm going to sign some books and hang out with y'all. Some of you, either the Honor the Earth website, or contact us, because I'd really like to have some people think about coming out to Minnesota to talk to some of those landowners or some of those people about what it's like to be from Kalamazoo. Because I think that your experience is worth something. But again, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.